Good morning. Have you ever had one of those mornings where technology just was not cooperating with you? Well, that has been my morning, but that is okay. I am starting fresh now. I'm Dina Cataldo. I am a lifestyle design coach. I specialize in helping lawyers and other professionals design their lives so that they're able to do what they want to do. I'm also a lawyer and an entrepreneur, so I have some insight into those areas of life too. I want to talk to you today about being a workaholic. And if you love work, there might be a reason you love work. And I'm here to explore that with you. I love work. Can I just tell you, I love work. I love the feeling that I get when I'm accomplishing something. I love the feeling of doing something that's going to impact someone else's life. I like the idea of working with other people. Like there's some energy that I get when I talk to other people, I work with other people. So there's a lot I get out of working a lot, but there's some negative things that I also associate with working hard, and I'm going to talk to you about that today. I'm actually going to read to you a journal entry from last night because I gained some new insight and I wanted to share that with you. And it might resonate with you. It might be something that you've never even thought of before, and it's negatively impacting how you work. And this is something that I am going to start exploring as I see how I work and how I show up in my work. So there's a few things I want to make sure I say. First, hit like. Tell me that you're here. I would love to hear from you. I know that you're watching this at a replay, and I appreciate you being here. I appreciate that you decided you wanted to click that link and start to think more about how you might have an addiction of some sort. Maybe it's work that is negatively impacting your life. Because when we're talking about addiction here, because I'm talking specifically about being a workaholic, but I would like you to substitute that word for any word that you see fit. It might be alcoholism. It might be addiction to your cell phone, social media. It could be addiction to a bad relationship, one that's having a negative impact on your life. It could be food, sugar, different things that maybe it's not a work addiction, but there is something else in your life that is creating a response in you that is fulfilling this cycle of addiction. And I'm going to talk about this cycle of addiction as it relates to a book recommendation that I have for you. So, okay, so I want to talk about that. I also want to talk about the fact that a new podcast is out, Soul Roadmap episode number 21. I talked to Jennifer L. Scott, who is a New York Times and international best-selling author of the Madame Chic books. She talks to me, oh my God, we had such a good conversation. She talks to me about how living in France impacted her and what she learned about living in France and some of those habits, some of those tips that you might want to incorporate into your life. So if you want to listen to that, I highly encourage you to do so and to subscribe at dinacataldo.com/21. You can also listen to Soul Roadmap on iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play. It's everywhere. And you can listen to it on iTunes at dinacataldo.com/iTunes. I made it nice and easy for you. So there you go. I would love to hear from you. So if you get there, leave a review and tell me what you think, because I want to know what you want to hear more of. It comes out every Thursday morning like clockwork, and that's it for that. Okay, so let's talk about being a workaholic. Yay! All right. So I'm going to go a little bit personal right now and just also link this in with the fact that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And the reason that that is near and dear to my heart is because I had breast cancer and I was diagnosed at 29 years old. So I find it extremely important to spread the word that you've got to examine yourself. It is not just a woman problem. It is a male problem too. Men get breast cancer too. So be sure to examine yourself and um, be sure to ask a lot of questions when you go into your doctor. You can go online to do that. If you feel like you need some extra support, let me know, because I'm always here to answer any questions that you have, okay? But the reason I'm linking this in is because I didn't recognize that I was a workaholic until I got breast cancer, and more specifically, until I was sitting on my butt during chemotherapy, and it felt really good. Like, I mean, chemotherapy, although it made me exhausted and gave me chemo brain and I couldn't concentrate, I also felt extremely relaxed. And it was the first time I'd been relaxed forever, right? Like, I have been working my tail off since at least high school, working, make sure I could go to a good school at UCLA. I was working so that I could go to another school, law school. I was working until I could get into the job that I wanted. And then when I was at my job, I was working. And that's when I hit, apparently, my threshold. And so that's also when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So after I went through chemotherapy, and during, actually, I started thinking about how I could live my life better. And I started incorporating some of those things and building some structure around my life so that I would not be working all the time. And it was really tough. Like, I relapsed, like, it was not relapsed in cancer, but relapsed in terms of working a ton and burned myself out again because I was working so hard. And when I read to you my diary entry from last night, you might be able to understand why, and you might be able to relate to this. And if any of what I'm telling you or what I'm saying about my story resonates with you, I'd love to know that. Could you let me know in the comments if any of that sounds like you at all? I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the conversations I've had with other lawyers and see if maybe you relate to any of those. I've also linked to a couple polls that are in this Facebook Live, if you have that there. But the first question I have is, do you think you have an addiction to anything? And I have news for you, you do. It's just a matter of building some awareness around it. And the other thing is what do you think you have an addiction to? And if you're not sure, give it some thought. I've put up some examples. It could be, addiction to your phone, addiction to sugar, addiction to work. Maybe it's a substance like alcohol. Those are different things that you might see that you're misusing. Those are things that you might want to take a look at in your own life. So, all right. So I want to talk about this book that I very, very, very much like. Okay, let me grab it here. Okay. It's Russell Brand's Freedom from Our Addictions. I really like this book. I linked to it here in the notes, in the show notes. It is, I've only gone through a couple chapters of it, and I know it's a good book when I'm already getting value from just those first chapters. Like when I'm already starting to get some insights, I feel comfortable recommending a book to you. So I definitely recommend it. And what he begins talking about is this 5-point cycle of addiction, which I want to walk through with you to start building that awareness of what's going on in your life so that you can take control of it. So the 5-point cycle starts with, first, there's some sort of pain, right? So when we have a pain in our leg, it's telling us not to put pressure on it. It's very obvious. But when we have an emotional pain, it's not so very obvious to us. We weren't really taught from a young age to be emotionally intelligent. We weren't given those skills, that ability to recognize off the top of our head, like, okay, something's wrong. Let me figure out what it is. Let's explore that. No, if anything, most of us, me included, we're taught to stuff our feelings down. If that was something you were taught, I'd love to know in the comments. So when we are adults and we have these pains coming at us, they originate from when we're kids usually. So we'll have an experience and we'll interpret that particular experience, and it may be a wrong interpretation, but we carry on that belief into our present day and it negatively impacts us in some way. So we might have a pain, but we're not really sure where it originates. The second point in this cycle of addiction is using an addictive agent like our cell phone, work, drugs, alcohol, a bad relationship, using those things, caffeine, I mean, anything can be addictive, right? To soothe us or distract us, okay? So that we're not feeling whatever bad feeling we're having. We're moving. We're, taking in different substances to try to just like chill us out. Like I'll sit on the couch. I do this, okay? I still do this, and I have to recognize what I'm doing. I'll sit on the couch and I'll snack on something, and I'm like, I'm not even really hungry. Why am I eating? And it's just taking that moment to recognize that there's something that you're doing that's not serving you. That's a step right there. The third thing to know is that this substance that you're using, this activity that you're using, is acting as an anesthesia or a distraction. That bad relationship, the sex, the drugs, whatever it is a temporary distraction to just soothe you. The fourth point in this cycle is seeing that there's a negative consequence to your actions. So for instance, a relationship breaks up. You sabotage it by having an extramarital affair. You sabotage your life by working too much. You sabotage your health by working too much, by not eating enough, by not exercising enough, by exercising too much. These are different things that you could start looking at. And then the fifth point in that cycle is a return to the first point, which is the pain. And that pain is shame. It shows up in that guilt. It can also show up in low self-esteem, feeling like you're not good enough, like you don't deserve what you have, or you don't deserve to have something more. And it's important to recognize that in order to change, you have to believe that you can be better than you are now. Okay? Let me let that sink in for a second. In order for us to change, we have to believe that we can be in a better place than we are right now. We can do this, all right? So when you start recognizing that there are things in your life that are showing up time and again, it's an addiction. It's having a negative consequence, right? So that's an addiction. If you're doing something over and over again, and you're getting a negative consequence from it, it's time to start looking at why you are doing that thing. Okay? So I'm going to read a portion of my journal from last night. Actually, this is my whole entry. And I have to say, even though I have thought about these things before, I don't think I've been able to articulate them in this way before. And if you relate to this, let me know in the comments, okay? All the hard work in the world isn't going to give you the approval you crave. I don't associate hard work with money because my parents were the hardest workers in the world and made almost nothing, just enough to get by. I associate hard work with approval. The more I worked as a child, the more I was praised by my dad and teachers. The better I did, the more approval I received. But when I didn't perform as expected, my dad withdrew approval or actively told me that I was bad or yelled at me and punished me in some way. I interpreted his disapproval of non-perfect performance as that I was quote unquote bad. I became a perfectionist to avoid the pain, and pain for me was shame and the feeling that I was bad. So I feel that I am very much a recovering perfectionist. That's another addiction, is being perfect, right? So everything has to be perfect before it's done. Well, that's not serving me because I'm not actually going to accomplish anything. I could wait around all day to film the perfect video, but I'm not going to be able to provide that for you. And then I'll never record. I'll just keep making excuses over and over and over again, and I'll never get anything out into the world. So I am very much a recovering perfectionist, and I have to recognize when I'm stalling to put something out into the world, because if I hesitate, if I don't do that, then I'm falling victim to my perfectionist tendencies. Now, the other thing that I recognized in this is that I worked so hard so that I could get approval. So one of the things that I'm doing now is questioning, like, why am I doing this? What is my why behind doing this? Is it because I'm going to get approval from somebody else? Or is it because I truly want to do this? And I feel I've made huge strides in this over the years. In the last few years especially, I noticed in the last 3 to 5 years that that's not really what's motivated me to work. Like, I've had different motivations to work, but I can also see where that might show up. So am I working because I'm trying to create something that's going to impact people positively, or am I working so that I can gain that approval? Like, I want you to like me. I mean, who doesn't want to be liked, right? I want to be liked. I'm a people pleaser. I want to be liked. I want you to like me. But at the same time, if you don't like me, it's like, whatever. You know, I can't put that energy out into the world, right? Like, I can't have that energy drain for me. I'm not going to be able to create anything that's going to be positive. So that was my personal little tidbit for today. Yeah, you're welcome. So if you want to share your own story, you can. I don't expect you to. I just felt that this was very relevant to our conversation today, so I wanted to share that with you. Now, I also want to talk to you about what I have been hearing from lawyers and how it might relate to you. Okay, so I'm creating a program right now. It's an online coaching course, and it's coming out next year. I wanted to make sure I was on the right track, make sure that I was creating something that was really going to hit all the pain points, right? That was really going to help somebody. And particularly, I wanted to talk to lawyers who worked in firms that were demanding, that were in an intense environment of some sort. And this class isn't necessarily going to just apply to lawyers, but I know lawyers, and that's who I'm focusing on. It could be a doctor, it could be a nurse, it could be a police officer, it could be anyone who's in a high stress environment and it needs to perform on demand. So the words that I kept hearing over and over were words like, and this is how they felt. They felt scattered, they felt frantic, they felt that they were stressed out all the time. There were patterns that I noticed and behaviors that I felt were unhealthy. And those are things that I would want to address if that were me. So not being able to ever sit still, to always be thinking about what you have to do next, to feel like you're hitting the ground running every single morning. These are all things that I struggled with at one time in my life. And so they were all things that I had to address. And that made me feel healthier, and it made me healthier. Then there were also thoughts like meditation wasn't something they could do because they couldn't sit still, or that their brain was always running, or that physically running was their meditation. When I heard those things, I understood them because I've been there. Again, I've been there and done that. But I had to take a step back and recognize that there was a reason why I couldn't sit still, and what was that? And if we don't take that moment to sit still, if we don't take that moment to recognize why we can't do something, then we're missing out on an opportunity for growth. That's how I look at it. If you want to grow, if you want to be better, right? Because we have to believe our life can be better before we do anything to change it, then it's time to address those behaviors. So if you've heard any of these, if any of these have been something that have popped into your brain, let me know which ones they were, because I want to learn these things and make sure that I'm on the right track and I'm talking to you about these topics. I want to know. I want to know if I'm talking about all the subjects you want to hit on. But that is what I noticed in all the lawyers that I talked to. I related to every single one of them. And they were all ones that I needed to address in order to get to where I am today, which is having the ability to talk someone else through what they're going through and help them make change in their lives. And that's what my personal coaching is all about. And that is what this online program next year is going to be all about. So that is how to build awareness around it. Now, how to build structure around your addictions. Okay. So now, if you are not truly addicted to a substance like alcohol, but you believe that maybe you're misusing alcohol, for instance, okay? Perhaps you have something like you feel like you need to drink all the time when you're at a networking event. You feel pressured to drink. I actually did a podcast on this with Caitlin Paget, who's an expert in this area. And if you go to soulroadmap.com and go to Caitlin Paget's episode, it's phenomenal. She's fantastic, and she talks about her experiences and her experiences with her clients who struggle with the same thing. So I recommend that. If you have any kind of addiction, work, text, whatever it might be, I highly recommend Russell Brand's book. I've linked to it in the notes in the post, and it's great. Like, it's really starting to break everything down. He does talk about the 12-step program, and he does it in a very non-Christian way. So if you are more spiritual than you are religious, I think you're going to be attracted to the way he discusses the 12-step program. I also believe that this book is the same thing, where you would just change any words that he uses for drugs or alcohol or whatever it is. You just change the word to an addiction, to being a workaholic, to being addicted to your cell phone. And he talks about that in this book, to being addicted to food. I mean, these are all things that he talks about, and I think it's a very relatable book. So to build structure around something like being a workaholic, well, that takes a lot of thought. I actually started, and I think this is a great starting point for anybody who is trying to create that structure. I started with my mornings, and if you go to dinacataldo.com/morning roadmap, that's dinacataldo.com/morning roadmap, actually break down how to structure your morning so that you can create some time for yourself. Because when we're working so much that we don't carve out some time for ourselves, then we can't actually work on ourselves. So the first step is to just create some time in our day for ourselves. And that can be tough when you have kids, when you have multiple responsibilities, you're running around, you've got, kids to feed, maybe you've got pets. I have pets. And it can be a lot of work. It can be painful trying to find that time for yourself, but you have to do it, and you can do it. Remember what I said earlier, okay? When you believe that your life can be better, you can change, okay? But if you don't believe your life can be better, you think that this is all there is, then what's the point? What's the point? I mean, in order to learn and grow, you've got to make that time for yourself so that you can learn and grow. I hope that makes sense. So dinacataldo.com/morning roadmap, and that will get you started on the right path, okay? That will help you create the morning that you need. Now, you don't have to be a morning person to do this. You might know steadfastly that you are an evening person. I suggest you try making yourself into a morning person, because that's what I did, but that's my experience. Maybe your kids are on a different schedule. I don't know. Maybe it'll work better in your life if you do this practice in the evening. I don't know you. I want to know you, but I don't know you. I can tell you how I was, which was I woke up at the last moment, and I would hit snooze over and over and over again. Maybe I'd sit in my bed and I'd be flipping on my phone, and then I'd get ready and I'd go to the office, and I'd be so exhausted by the end of the day, I would just pass out on the couch. Well, that left me no time or energy for myself. I gave myself zero time or energy to start improving my life. And when I recognized just how much pain I was waking up in the morning and how crappy I felt in the morning, that is when I started making change. And so this morning roadmap is my guidebook to show you how I did it. All right. So go get that at dinacataldo.com/morning roadmap. There's a link to the book here in the post, and I hope you have a fabulous day. Be sure to share this with anyone that you think could benefit from this. If you share this on your timeline, maybe somebody who's going through something like this can come across it and relate and maybe get a little bit of help. So if you feel so inspired, I'd really appreciate it if you'd share this post. Have a wonderful day. Bye.